The rain hammered my workshop windows like bullets as I carved another groove into the newel post, wood shavings curling at my feet like dying prayers. 2 a.m. again. Sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. Not when my wife Sienna stumbled in at midnight reeking of expensive cologne that sure as hell wasn't mine. "Cal? You still up?" Her voice drifted from the kitchen, honeyed and fake as artificial sweetener. I didn't answer. The chisel bit deeper into the oak, following grain lines that made more sense than my marriage. 15 years of custom furniture making in this godforsaken Maine coastal town, and I'd learned that wood doesn't lie. Unlike wives who claim they're working late managing luxury vacation rentals. Sienna appeared in my doorway, designer heels clicking against concrete. Even disheveled, she was stunning, the kind of woman who stopped traffic and knew it. Her auburn hair caught the workshop light, and her green dress clung to curves that had once made me forget my own name. "Did you sign a non-compete with your pants?" I asked without looking up. "Jesus, California. You're paranoid." She crossed her arms, pushing up cleavage that probably got plenty of attention tonight. "I told you, emergency with the Morrison property. Pipes burst, guests screaming, the whole nightmare." "Right. Because plumbing emergencies require lipstick touch-ups." Her phone buzzed, then again. She glanced at it, and I caught something in her expression, guilt mixed with excitement, the look of someone with secrets. "I'm exhausted," she said, backing toward the door. "Don't stay up all night again." After her footsteps faded upstairs, I set down my tools and cracked my knuckles. The storm outside matched my mood perfectly, all fury and no outlet. But storms pass, and when they do, they leave things exposed. The next morning brought gray light and the smell of expensive coffee. Sienna sat at our kitchen island, scrolling through her phone with manicured fingers. She'd changed into yoga pants and a tank top that cost more than most people's rent. "Morning, sunshine," I said, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one she'd bought me years ago that read, "World's Best Husband." The irony wasn't lost on either of us anymore. She barely looked up. "Jade's picking me up for brunch." That new place in Camden, Jade Penrose. Sienna's best friend and enabler, a failed reality TV contestant who treated gossip like currency. If Sienna was planning something, Jade would be her accomplice. "Sounds riveting," I said. "Try not to let your loyalty discount expire." Sienna's head snapped up. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just thinking about customer service these days. You know, how some businesses reward faithful clients, while others—" I shrugged. "Well, they don't." Her phone buzzed again. This time she grabbed it quickly, but not quickly enough. I caught a glimpse of the name, Bex Lyle, local yacht broker, former bad boy turned slick businessman. The kind of guy who wore expensive watches and called everyone buddy while calculating how to screw them over. "I need to get ready," Sienna said, standing abruptly. "Sure thing. Don't forget your leash." She froze. "Excuse me?" "For the loyalty program." "Some places require identification." Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Smart woman. We both knew this conversation was about more than customer service. After she left with Jade, air kisses and fake laughter echoing from the driveway, I found myself alone with opportunity. Sienna had forgotten her backup phone, the one she thought I didn't know about. It sat on the counter, Face ID still active from her morning routine. My thumb hovered over the screen. 15 years of marriage, and it had come to this. But loyalty, I'd learned, was a two-way street, and I was tired of walking alone. The phone unlocked easily. Her social media lit up like a Christmas tree. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all perfectly curated images of our life together, captioned with inspirational quotes about love and commitment. The comments were full of heart emojis and relationship goals from people who had no idea what went on behind closed doors. Then I found her latest post, uploaded just an hour ago. "Loyalty is for dogs, not women like me. Living my best life, no regrets." The photo showed her at some upscale bar, cocktail in hand, looking directly at the camera with a smirk that said she knew exactly what she was doing. The comments were already rolling in from her followers, mostly other women cheering her on for knowing her worth and not settling. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. I clicked comment and typed, "Perfect. Stay on a leash then." Posted. Then I blocked her account from my phone and uploaded a photo from our last vacation. Sienna and Jade on the beach, arms around each other, laughing. I captioned it. Some people know what loyalty means, but I wasn't done. Her DMs were open, and what I found there made my stomach turn. Messages to Bex filled with innuendos and plans to meet at the marina. Conversations with Jade about bleeding Cal dry in a divorce and finally being free to live. Screenshots. All of them. Evidence of betrayal spelled out in emoji-filled messages that would make a sailor blush. My phone rang. Maggie from the Drunken Gull, the local dive bar where everyone eventually ended up. "Cal, you might want to get down here. Your wife's having some kind of meltdown." The Drunken Gull smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, exactly what I needed. Maggie stood behind the bar, her weathered face creased with concern and something that might have been amusement. She'd been bartending here for 20 years, had seen every kind of drama this town could produce. "She came in screaming about her social media being hacked," Maggie said, sliding me a whiskey. "Jade was trying to calm her down, but your wife was having none of it. They left about 10 minutes ago, but not before half the town heard her ranting about loyalty and dogs." I sipped the whiskey, feeling it burn away some of the morning's bitterness. Sounds like quite a show. Cal. Maggie leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I like you, so I'm going to say this once. Your wife's been yachting with Bex Lyle, if you know what I mean. I'd sanitize your sheets. Thought I smelled something fishy." She didn't laugh. "There's more. Word is they're planning to move in together, and they've been eyeing that restored Mustang of yours. Bex was asking around about registration transfers. My 1967 Mustang Fastback. I'd spent 3 years restoring her, every bolt and gasket replaced by hand. She was worth more than most people's houses, and meant more to me than that. If Sienna thought she could take my car along with my dignity, she had another think coming. Thanks, Maggie. I owe you one. Just be careful, Cal. Cornered animals bite. The storm had intensified by the time I reached home, but I barely noticed. My workshop had everything I needed: tools, spare parts, and most importantly, a clear head. The Mustang sat in the garage like a sleeping beast, her midnight blue paint reflecting the overhead lights. I popped the hood and got to work. Spark plugs came out easily, replaced with duds that would fire just long enough to start the engine before failing spectacularly. The GPS tracker was harder to hide, but I'd installed enough of them in custom furniture for paranoid clients to know the tricks. Tucked up under the dashboard, invisible but functional. My phone buzzed with notifications. Sienna's social media meltdown was spreading through our small town like wildfire. People were taking screenshots, sharing stories, picking sides. In a place where everyone knew everyone else's business, this was better than cable television. I posted a cryptic video on my private account, just a shot of the Mustang's keys dangling from my finger with the caption, "Some rides are one way only." Then I settled in to wait. They came for the car at sunset, just as I'd expected. From my workshop window, I watched Sienna and Bex approach the garage like thieves, which I suppose they were. She had a spare key. I'd given it to her years ago, back when trust meant something. Bex looked exactly like what he was, a small-town player who thought he'd hit the jackpot. Designer jeans, polo shirt, the kind of artificially white smile that came from expensive dental work. He kept checking his phone, probably calculating how much the Mustang would bring on the black market. They didn't notice me following at a distance as the engine turned over, coughed, and died in the middle of Main Street. Right in front of the post office, where half the town would see them. Sienna's heels clicked frantically on the asphalt as she got out to look under the hood, her designer dress riding up in ways that would have excited me once. Now it just looked desperate. Bex tried to play mechanic, but his soft hands had never held anything more complex than a martini shaker. The engine turned over again, sputtered, and died with a sound like a dying whale. A small crowd began to gather. Mrs. Henderson from the flower shop, Tom Bradley from the hardware store, a handful of teenagers with phones already recording. That's when the smell hit. Sienna's face went from confusion to horror as the aroma of rotting fish filled the air. She opened the trunk, screamed, and stumbled backward, right into a pothole full of rainwater. Her designer heels snapped, sending her sprawling into the puddle while the crowd burst into laughter. Bex tried to help her up, slipped on the wet pavement, and went down beside her. Two adults, soaked and humiliated, surrounded by the smell of dead fish and the sound of recording phones. I watched from across the street, my inner monologue running like a satisfied commentary track. Sometimes karma needs a designated driver. But the show wasn't over. Jade appeared from nowhere, her own phone out, filming the disaster with the dedication of a war correspondent. She was supposed to be Sienna's best friend, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. This was content gold, and Jade had always been more interested in social media fame than loyalty. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Pay up or your dirty laundry goes viral. Jade knows things. $10,000 cash or everyone sees what really happened at the Morrison property. I smiled and typed back, "Try me." The next phase required precision timing and inside knowledge. Fortunately, small towns run on gossip, and I'd been listening carefully for years. Gulliver Marsh, my eccentric neighbor and former military intelligence officer, had been tracking Bex's business dealings for months. Apparently, yacht brokerage was just a front for a dozen other schemes, most of them involving other people's money. "Your wife's boyfriend owes half the marina," Gulliver told me over coffee in his cluttered kitchen. "Boat slips, fuel bills, insurance premiums. He's been floating checks like party balloons. Interesting timing for a romantic getaway. Gets better. That luxury rental your wife manages, the Morrison property, she's been double booking it, collecting deposits from multiple clients for the same dates. Jade's been helping her manage the fake calendar. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The plan came together like a well-crafted joint, each piece fitting perfectly with the next. I hacked Sienna's rental management calendar, she'd never changed the password from our anniversary date, and scheduled a fake luxury client viewing at the marina for the next evening. Big money, cash deal, the kind of opportunity that would bring both Sienna and Bex running. Then I made some calls. "Tom? It's Cal Braddock. You know that boat slip payment Bex Lyle's been dodging? He'll be at the marina tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Thought you might want to know." "Mrs. Patterson? About those double-booked reservations at the Morrison property? I've got documentation if you're interested in getting your deposit back." By the time I finished calling, half the local business community was planning to attend Sienna's fake client meeting, not as customers, but as creditors. The storm that had been building all week finally broke as evening approached, turning the marina into a scene from a disaster movie. Wind whipped the harbor into whitecaps, and rain fell in sheets that made visibility almost impossible. Perfect weather for a reckoning. I arrived early, positioning myself in the marina office where I could see everything. Sienna and Bex showed up right on time, dressed for success and completely unprepared for what was waiting. The crowd that greeted them wasn't composed of potential clients. Tom Bradley stepped forward first, his weathered face grim with purpose. "Bex Lyle, you owe me $3,000 for that boat slip." "Sienna Braddock, Mrs." Patterson's voice cut through the wind. "Where's my deposit for the Morrison property? The one you rented to 3 other families the same weekend?" More voices joined in, a chorus of accusations backed by receipts and documentation. Bex tried to run, his expensive loafers sliding on the wet dock planks. He made it maybe 10 feet before gravity and poor traction sent him sprawling toward the harbor's edge. I happened to be holding the safety rope at that exact moment. My grip happened to slip just as he grabbed for it. He didn't fall in, but the near miss left him soaked, terrified, and clinging to the dock like a drowning rat. Sienna tried to help him, but her designer bag caught on a cleat and tore open, spilling its contents into the churning water below. Jade was there with her phone, of course, live streaming the chaos for her followers. But Gulliver's drone caught something interesting. Jade pocketing a thick roll of cash that had fallen from Sienna's bag. Apparently, loyalty was a flexible concept for everyone involved. As the rain poured down and the crowd pressed closer, Sienna finally lost her composure completely. "You'll regret this, Cal!" she screamed across the marina, her perfect makeup running in black streams down her cheeks. "I'll destroy you." I stepped out of the office, close enough for her to see my smile. "I already do regret it, sweetheart. I regret not doing this sooner." The final confrontation came 3 days later, after the whole town had seen the marina footage, and Jade's livestream had gone viral for all the wrong reasons. Bex, desperate to salvage his reputation, decided that intimidation was his best remaining option. He showed up at my workshop just after midnight, probably thinking he'd catch me off guard. What he didn't know was that I'd been expecting him, and I'd prepared accordingly. "We need to talk, buddy," he said, trying to sound tough despite the nervous tremor in his voice. "Sure thing. Come on in." The moment he stepped through the door, motion sensors triggered every light and security camera in the shop. The sudden illumination was blinding, and the high-pitched whine of the alarm system made conversation impossible. But the cameras were the real trap. They were already streaming to Maggie's phone, and she was already posting the feed to the town's Facebook group with the caption, "Bex Lyle, threatening local business owner." "What the hell?" Bex started, but I was already moving. I'm not a big man, but 15 years of furniture making had given me strength in my hands and shoulders that office work couldn't match. I pinned him against the door with one arm across his throat, not enough to hurt him, but enough to make my point crystal clear. "If you ever touch my tools, my property, or my life again," I whispered, my face inches from his, "you'll wish it was just your reputation I ruined." His phone was in his hand, probably recording what he thought would be evidence of assault. I slapped it away, watching it shatter against the concrete floor like his dreams of easy money. "Now get out of my shop." He ran. Actually ran, stumbling over his own feet in his hurry to escape. The security cameras caught every moment of his cowardice, and by morning the footage was everywhere. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The next evening, I paid a visit to the marina, where Bex kept his pride and joy, a sleek yacht that represented everything he thought he was. Using skills learned from years of precision woodworking, I carved 2 words into the fiberglass hull: loyalty discount. Then I tied a dog leash to the helm and took a photo. The image went viral within hours. Not just locally, but across social media platforms where Sienna's original "Loyalty is for Dogs" post had been screenshot and shared. The irony was too perfect for the internet to ignore. By the time Bex discovered the damage, his yacht brokerage business was finished. No one trusts a boat dealer whose own vessel looks like it was vandalized by an angry ex. He left town that same week, towing the damaged yacht behind a rented truck. Sienna tried to salvage her rental management business, but word travels fast in small towns. Her double booking scheme had cost her every legitimate client, and the social media drama had made her toxic to the luxury market she'd worked so hard to cultivate. The final insult came from Jade, who sold her story to a regional magazine under the headline, "My best friend's social media meltdown nearly destroyed our town." The article painted Sienna as a cautionary tale about the dangers of online narcissism, and included several unflattering photos from the marina incident. Some betrayals, I reflected, come from the people closest to you. On the last night before Sienna moved out, I found her in our bedroom, packing designer clothes into suitcases that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She looked smaller, somehow, diminished by the loss of her digital kingdom and social status. "I hope you're happy," she said without looking at me. I'm satisfied, I replied. There's a difference. She paused, a silk blouse halfway into the suitcase. Was any of it real? Our marriage, I mean. It was real until you decided it wasn't. That was the last conversation we ever had as husband and wife. She left the next morning in a beat-up rental car, her social media accounts deleted, her reputation in ruins. I watched from the workshop window as she drove away, feeling nothing but relief. The divorce papers came a month later, along with a settlement that left her with almost nothing. Turns out that documentation of adultery and financial fraud makes for a very one-sided negotiation, especially when your lawyer is more interested in avoiding publicity than fighting for your assets. I kept the house, the workshop, and the Mustang. More importantly, I kept my dignity and my reputation in a town where both mattered more than money. 6 months later, I was back at the Drunken Gull, celebrating the completion of a custom dining set for a client in Bar Harbor. Maggie poured my usual whiskey and raised her own glass in a toast. Here's to loyalty, she said with a grin that held 20 years of bartender wisdom. May it bite the right people when they least expect it. I drank to that sentiment and meant every drop. Outside, the Maine coast stretched endlessly toward the horizon, gray and unforgiving and honest in ways that people rarely managed. The storm that had defined those terrible weeks had long since passed, leaving behind clear skies and the kind of peace that comes from surviving something that should have destroyed you. Loyalty, I'd learned, wasn't about staying faithful to people who betrayed you. It was about being true to yourself, even when the cost was higher than you wanted to pay. Some lessons come expensive, but they're worth every penny when you finally understand what they're really teaching you. The leash was probably still tied to Bex's yacht somewhere, swinging in whatever harbor had been unlucky enough to accept his business. A small reminder that some people get exactly what they deserve, and sometimes the universe needs a little help making sure justice gets served. I finished my drink, left money on the bar, and walked out into the crisp evening air. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, and hopefully new reasons to believe that loyalty still meant something in a world that seemed determined to prove otherwise. But tonight was for satisfaction, for the quiet pleasure of knowing that I'd fought back against betrayal and won. Not through violence or illegal schemes, but through patience, planning, and the simple truth that actions have consequences, even for people who think they're too clever to get caught. The workshop lights were on when I got home, illuminating tools that had never lied to me and wood that had never betrayed my trust. I had work to do, furniture to build, and a life to live on my own terms. Some people collect loyalty points through credit cards and shopping programs. I'd learned to earn mine the hard way, through standing up for principles that mattered more than convenience or social approval. It was a lesson worth learning, even if the tuition had been higher than I'd ever wanted to pay.